To honor Mary Landrieu. Mary was a seatmate of mine on the Senate floor. She sat right next to me, and we had long discussions about everything. And what I can tell you about Mary is something that I know you already know. And every member of the Democratic caucus who sits behind closed doors at caucus meetings will reaffirm. And that is, there has been nobody in the United States Senate who has fought harder for her state than has Mary Landrieu. And I should also thank Mary, and this is the kind of senator she was, is that all of the painful lessons that she learned dealing with Katrina and dealing with the federal bureaucracy to make sure that New Orleans was rebuilt, she helped those of us in other states. Vermont had its storm, Irene, which devastated our state. And Mary went out of her way, volunteered to be helpful to Senator Leahy and me to help us do what we could for the state of Vermont. Mary, thank you very much for that. Let me tell you what I think you already know, is that I am running for President of the United States. And I'm running for President because, in fact, we need a political revolution in this country. And by that, I mean that nothing is going to change when we have elections, as we just did last November, when 63% of the American people don't vote, when 80% of the young people in this country don't vote, when millions of people have given up on the political process because they don't think that Washington is hearing their pain. And what a political revolution is about is to understand that the time is now to tell the billionaire class, which runs our economy, which controls our political life, that is enough, they cannot have it all. And that we are going to bring millions of people together to stand up and tell them that this country and our government belong to all of us and not to a handful of people whose greed is destroying the United States of America. In my view, the great moral, economic, and political issue of our day is the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality in America. It is not acceptable to me, and as president, it will not continue to have the top 0.1% owning as much wealth as the bottom 90%. It is not acceptable to me that in recent years we have seen a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires, and yet America has by far the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. That is not what this country should be about. We are very grateful that in the last 6.5 years we have seen substantial improvement in the economy from when George Bush left office. That's true, and we should be grateful. But we should also understand and not forget for 1 second that the great middle class of this country, once the envy of the entire world, has in fact been disappearing for the last 40 years. Despite an explosion in technology and worker productivity, millions and millions of workers are working longer hours for lower wages. They're working 2 jobs, they're working 3 jobs. They can't afford to send their kids to college. That is not an economy which is sustainable. It is not an economy which is moral. It is not an economy that the American people deserve. We need an economy that works for all of us and not just for a handful of people on top. When the United States of America has huge unmet needs, a crumbling infrastructure, a dysfunctional child care center, mass unemployment of our young people, we need to tell the wealthiest people in this country and the largest corporations that they are going to have to start paying their fair share of taxes. They're not going to be putting their profits in the Cayman Islands and other tax havens and not paying their fair share. When we talk about what's going on in America, maybe the most important issue has to do with a disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. And by a 5-4 vote, what the U.S. Supreme Court said to the wealthiest people in America, the Koch brothers and all of them, what the Supreme Court said is, guys, you already own much of the economy. We are now going to give you the opportunity to buy the United States government. I have not made many promises in my short campaign so far, but there is one that I have made and I repeat to you. No nominee of mine to the Supreme Court will get that job unless he or she loudly and proudly proclaims that they will vote to overturn Citizens United. And if we are serious about recreating a vibrant democracy, we've got to go further and move toward public funding of elections. All of us who run for office, Amy knows, Mary knows, all of us, Republicans know, that we spend half our lives hustling money from wealthy people. That is not what a democratic society should be about. And that's why we need to move toward public funding of elections. Now, in my view, and I think Pope Francis did a wonderful job, and I know I am in Louisiana, and I hear you have somewhat of an oil industry here. I heard that. But nonetheless, I have to tell you what is true. And that is the scientific community is virtually unanimous in telling us climate change is real. Climate change is caused by human activity. Climate change is already causing devastating problems. And if we do not get our act together, the situation will only become worse in years to come. Yes, we must transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. And yes, we must move toward energy efficiency and sustainable energies. And yes, we must lead the world in saving this planet from the ravages of climate change. And when we talk about the needs of America, it is unacceptable to me, and I know to you, that at a time when we live in a highly competitive global economy, when we need the best educated workforce in the world, that today hundreds of thousands of bright young people cannot go to college, not because they don't work hard, not because they're not smart. They can't go to college because their families do not have sufficient funding. And that is why I've introduced legislation that will make every public college and university in America tuition free. And people say to me, well, Bernie, that's an expensive proposition. It is an expensive proposition. It's about $70 billion a year. And I will pay for that by putting the tax on Wall Street speculation. The working class and middle class of this country bailed out Wall Street. It's Wall Street's time to help the middle class of this country. And in that legislation, we also have to address student debt and the absurdity of people paying interest rates of 8, 9, and 10% when they can refinance their homes at 2 or 3%. So there are a lot of issues out there. But the bottom line is that nothing changes unless we put together a strong grassroots movement. The Republican agenda of more tax breaks for billionaires, cuts to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the ending of the EPA, nobody believes in that agenda. But they win because Democrats have been on the defensive for too damn long, and it's time for Democrats to get on the offensive. And that is exactly what I intend to do. Thank you all very much.
Senator Sanders, we certainly thank you for being here. We want to thank all of you for being here. How about JJ 2015? How about JJ 2015? How about our senior senator,